see some new faces and some familiar faces. We appreciate you taking your time to spend some time with us this evening to educate yourself about some data centers and our upcoming projects. So the way to the future, AI and data centers, is here. While we welcome growth in technology, it's not too much to ask for proactive measures to be in place before the actual construction takes place. Proper language on the comprehensive plan is very much needed as these proposed data center projects are moving at a very fast pace. I had made mention of that we were losing 23% of our prime farmland. I want to explain to you how I got to the number of 23%. If you take the Goldfinch Geronimo project of 3,300 acres, okay, that's a done, signed deal project for that solar farm. And then we have the estimated data center campus estimate of 5,000. That comes from our interviews with the farmers who have agreed to sell their land, and then also from a map that Janet Garrison put together when we went and acquired and did our research of the farmers that are willing to talk to us and what they can say, because again, they've signed non-disclosures. So we come up with that total of 8,300 acres of prime farmland has been designated for the wave of the future. Now, how do I get to the 23%? The comprehensive plan provides that total. The comprehensive plan states that there is 35,780 acres of prime farmland. So if you take the 8,300, that leaves us a loss of 23%. According to our judge executive, as stated at a local radio station at WFTM's The Breakfast Club, and also reiterated during a recent fiscal court meeting, the proposed development is expected to create 400 jobs with salaries of $100,000 or more. To achieve the promise of 400 jobs, the plan, for example, would require construction of approximately 16 to 18 data centers. So please know, we are talking about a campus, not a center. This calculation is based on the information that each data center employs between 20 to 22 people. Using the higher figure of 22 employees per data center, it would take an estimated 16 to 18 data centers to employ 396 people. A post in January by goodjobfirst.com, Amazon in Indiana boasted of 400 jobs that the company promised would be fulfilled at full development, meaning the entire complex of 16 data centers. Another post by goodjobfirst.com, when the Indiana governor announced a Google data center, he touted 200 jobs. Because Indiana's data center subsidy does not require job creation, Google is not legally obligated to create any jobs in exchange for that subsidy. It's just a caution that we just have to prepare ourselves for the growth. Each 12 megawatt data center, according to Google, requires roughly 100 to 300 acres of land. With 16 to 18 data centers needed, the total land required would be 5,000 acres. This amounts to approximately, with the Goldfinch project of 3,300, 23% of our prime farmland, which would be permanently lost if the project proceeds as outlined this year. As we speak of data centers this evening, please also keep in mind of the possibility of 16 to 18 data centers. It's a campus, it's not a center. Think of the multiplier as we talk about the water usage and electric usage of 16 to 18 times when we're referring to a data center. Again, 23% of prime farmland is too much land to lose in 1 year's time. So we hope that you'll stay tuned and help us proceed with some further education. We're looking to continue and do some more of these classes. And right now I'd like to introduce you to Max Moran.
Thank you, Pam. So good evening, everybody, and thank you all for coming out. This is one of our first major functions as we've started to get guest speakers at our events we're holding now, so we have a better understanding of data centers and also help the community understand what we're getting at. Got a brief little speech I want to read to you guys here. So, I want to formally introduce myself. My name is Sherman Maxwell Moran. I'm the current active president and executive director of the group We Are Mason County Incorporated. Of course, again, thank you all for coming out. We truly appreciate your interest, and our goal is to provide the community with ongoing education about the increasing demand for our prime farmland. As was already mentioned, according to the executive director of the Mason County Industrial Development Authority, a data center is being proposed for Mason County. With the introduction of new technology as currently proposed, we are expected to lose 23% of our prime farmland this year alone. This significant change brings several challenges to our community, including identifying the experts qualified to address these issues, addressing questions related to construction and pollution control, assessing the potential environmental impact, determining how our infrastructure will support the new technology in terms of power and water supply while ensuring that Mason County residents continue to have access to water, electricity, and a healthy environment. We Are Mason County is committed to providing an education for the community. We hope to see you at our future educational events where we will be continuing to address these important topics. As we navigate this new and uncharted territory, our research team is dedicated to finding credible experts and delivering up-to-date information to the people of Mason County. It's my pleasure this evening to introduce everybody to our guest speaker, Elisa Owen, Senior Campaign Organizer, Sierra Club, who has the following education and experience: a bachelor's degree in political science and English from Emory University, a master's degree in international relations and economics from Johns Hopkins, Master's of Divinity from Princeton Seminary, professional experience in energy economics and regulation at the National Economic Research Associates in Washington, D.C., Senior Project Manager for Latin America at the International Institute for Energy Efficiency. Everybody, please welcome Elisa Owens.
Fair enough. All right, well, I'll start with that. Does that make you happy? All right. So, a data center is a large warehouse that is full of computer banks. And it holds data, and it puts computers together. Then you see together to do a task that had been assigned to them by the owners of, either by the owners of the data center or by the tenants of the data center, depending on how the data center works. So basically, you don't have a lot of people doing much in there. You have computers processing information. This data center boom that we are experiencing right now is largely because of artificial intelligence and the kinds of computing that needs to be done to, number one, train artificial intelligence systems, and number two, to run experiments on things that they want to do with the AI. So the data centers are very important to allow advancements in the field of AI. And that is why there's so much buzz about them. And I'll be saying more, but does that help? Thank you. Good. I'm glad we could.
I did not know what, I heard us talk about this. I said, well, what is it?
Fair enough. Well, I think we can start with what? That's what we're talking about this evening. Thank you, sir, for asking. Before I go any further, let me thank you for having me here.
My name is Elisa, and I am thrilled to be here. I have been, the reason I went to Princeton Seminary was to be a pastor, but before I was a pastor, I was very interested in policy. And I was interested in policy because, to me, politics was an opportunity for us to be a we. And I love that, and have always loved that. And so that is why I studied political science when I was in college. And I was interested in questions, right, that we ask through our politics, right? What is truth? What is justice? Who has power? Who should have power? All of that. I want you to know that I went to seminary for the same reasons. Same question, right? So, I am back in the more policy-oriented stuff because I think that they are questions that we should not be afraid to ask together. And I hope that I can facilitate your asking and answering of questions this evening. I work currently for the Sierra Club, which is a national organization. We've been around for a long time, almost 150 years. We were started by John Muir, who had the idea for our national parks, which I think is a really good idea, and I'm very happy he had it. I love the national parks. I love to hike. I love to be out in nature. That is the place where I often feel closest to God. So, why am I here and not in the pulpit? Well, I'm here because I also have 2 children, and my children are 16 and 13, and I want a livable future for my children. And back in Washington, after I graduated from school, I learned a lot about how the energy system works, and I'm actually the energy organizer for the state of Kentucky. And what I want to do first, besides tell you about what we do real quick, is I want to explain to you why the energy organizer is talking to you. Because that will be an important thing for you to understand, right? But let me start just with the Sierra Club. Everybody that works for the Sierra Club in Kentucky is from here. I was born and raised in Louisville, and I still live in Louisville. I have ancestors that go back here in Kentucky and to about 17, just from the beginning. Most of those ancestors were in Shelby County. And so, I have 2 daughters, and I want them to be able to grow up with clean air, clean water, and a healthy natural systems around them, healthy land. That's why I'm the energy organizer. Because for a long time, we have done energy in such a way that we can't keep doing it that way and have us continue to have clean air, clean water, and healthy land and ecosystems. And so that is why I left the church and came to the Sierra Club. So, all of us are just like you. Kentuckians concerned about how our government serves us. We are interested in building grassroots advocacy in the state of Kentucky. And that's why they pay me to come and talk to you about data centers, right? Because we want you guys to know what we're doing. We want policies that put people first. We research, we organize, we teach, we collaborate. That's what we do all day long, every day. I personally am very involved with the utilities in the state, and that's because there's a lot of overlap. If I'm working on energy, I'm working with utilities. So just real quick, how many people in this room pay a bill to LGNKU? Do you live in Maysville? Okay. How many people pay a bill to a county
Co-op or UCA.
co-op? Yeah. All right. And other people pay to other city munis, I would guess.
Just those two.
Just those two is pretty much it. So
Here
you
we
pay.
have KU and we have EKPC in Mason County. We're a dual-served county.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I was aware of that, but I thought that KU just served the city of Maysville. Is that wrong?
They also serve Germantown too.
Germantown also.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So, anyway, we are holding utilities accountable, always fighting for truly lowest cost energy. We want the corporations, even if you have an IOU, an investor-owned utility with shareholders as your utility, we want them to serve you and not their shareholders first. When water is polluted, your water bill goes up. When air quality drops, your medical bills rise. Just want to assure you that all of us are just as tired of prices rising as you are. So let's get started. One of our biggest concerns about what's going on here is the issue of transparency. The reason for that is because citizens cannot hold government accountable unless they have adequate information. And so that is the reason that we wanted to partner with all of the folks in Mason County to try to get you more information. But what information we give is no substitute for what information you get from your elected officials. And I hope you'll keep asking them for information. There's no reason that people should come and locate in your county who you don't know who they are. Absolutely no reason for that. So, data centers, why do you think a utility might want a data center? Do you have any idea why they might want to add a data center to their customer base?
Make more money.
Money. You got it. MONEY. Regardless of who they are, if their load increases, then they are going to have more on their balance sheet, right? But that's especially true for investor-owned utilities like Kentucky Utilities. So I'm not sure who the data center folks are talking to about energy, but in a minute I'm going to talk to you about how much energy they're going to actually need and give you an idea of why these conversations, when people say the conversations you're having are new, what they mean is they're new in terms of size. Okay? And I'm going to explain that to you in just a second. Utilities want to attract data centers because of the size, precisely, right? Because then they get to do what? Build more infrastructure.
Amen.
Power plants, transmission lines, distribution companies, right? So the utilities want to have more load so they can have more return, more investments to have a return on. They're building out the utility grid to try to entice data centers to come here. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. They're treating it like, of course data centers are going to come here. We'll see about that. But when they are talking about data centers coming, whose money are they using?
Ours.
That's right. That's absolutely right. So they're playing with our money, right? And we have to make sure that when they play with our money, they're investing in things that make sense. Okay? So, before we get started, I realize that not all of you have KU, but because my guess is, I'm not sure who owns the transmission lines for which will serve as the place where the data centers get their utilities, and because you don't know that and I don't know that, right? And so it makes it hard for me to talk to you, but let me tell you, just for those of you with LG&E KU, if people have an investor-owned utility, that investor-owned utility, can that investor-owned utility just set the price it wants for its electricity? No, it can't. And who stops it from just saying, you know what, we want you to pay $20 a kilowatt hour? Do you know who stops it from doing that?
Public Service, GSC.
You got it. So there are two cases I want to tell you about. And the reason I want to tell you about these two cases is because I'm trying to make the connection for you between data centers and what's going on at the Public Service Commission this year. Okay? That's why I'm telling you. So in August, LG&E KU filed for a certificate of public convenience and necessity. Actually, they filed in May. The case wasn't heard until August. A certificate of public convenience and necessity. What that is, when you cut through the gobbledygook, is it is a request for a permission slip to build infrastructure. So they went to the PSC and they said, we want to use $3.3 billion of our ratepayers' money, right? And we want to use that to build gas plants, put a scrubber on a coal plant, maybe do a battery, maybe not, and we want to build these things without having data centers here yet. We're building them to attract the data centers, okay? So that case was heard at the Public Service Commission in August. We will have an answer to the question of, is our Public Service Commission going to let them build power for data centers without having any actual data centers in their pocket on October 28th? Okay? So that is the first thing. And LG&E KU was clear in their integrated resource plan that they filed before this CPCN. They were very clear that the reason they were building power plants with our money was because they wanted to attract data centers to this state. Okay? So, the second case that is going to be heard on November 3rd, they are asking permission not to build new infrastructure, but to build us. Okay? So they want to charge ratepayers a profit on top of their routine business costs. From cybersecurity to smart meters to, we're so sorry, the storms are getting worse. And so we need more money to clean up after the storms, and we want you to pay for it, not us, you. Right? They also, in this rate case, are going to have the Public Service Commission approve, they hope, an extra high load factor tariff. Who has the biggest load going? Data centers. And so they want the PSC to approve this extra high load factor tariff during this case. I will tell you now and I will tell you later. There is a hearing in Lexington on the 14th of October at 5 p.m. Any of you who can come and say you do not want to pay for LG&E to take the costs that are routine costs from doing business, take them off their balance sheet, and put them instead, capitalize them. Do you know what that means? That simply means that they become a regulatory asset.
Appreciate.
And if they become a regulatory asset, they can depreciate them and they can give their shareholders more return on those costs. So we will show you where you can get more information on this, but the reason, again, that I'm telling you this is because all of this has everything to do with data centers in Kentucky. Right? The common thread of these two cases is that data center speculation is the driving force behind the CPCN, the permission to build, and a major cost driver in the rate case. If you are a customer of Kentucky Utilities, you could be on the hook for all of this money. Electric bills are going up across the nation, and this is partly why. So, how did Frankfurt help to stack the deck against ratepayers when it came to data centers? Your legislature, late in the 2025 session, in a modest 4-page bill that became 150 pages, stuffed with handouts for special interests, tucked away inside, buried between unrelated items, was a massive expansion for tax incentives for data centers. Data centers. Extending those tax incentives beyond Jefferson County, where I live, to all of your counties. So what is that? Kentucky legislature paved the way for data center development here. Will Kentuckians benefit? Well, that's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? That's why we're here. Why does the most powerful trillion-dollar industry in the world, Silicon Valley, need our state dollars? Who's going to pay for these data centers in Kentucky? Just want to talk to you now, having set the stage, right? This is why an energy organizer is talking to you about data centers. You're starting to get it, right? How data centers are impacting ratepayers and the communities and where they locate. The first thing I want to show you with this slide is you're not alone. You are not alone. It's happening all over the country. Electricity prices are climbing twice as fast as inflation. We've got to build out the grid so that we can attach all these data centers to it. Right? AI boom is driving a surprise resurgence of gas and coal-fired power. Yukon residents worry planned data center could strain utilities, increase household costs. I want to talk to you a minute about the scale of the challenge. Yours is big. Yours is big. If you're going to have data centers on 5,000 acres, that's a lot of data centers. That is not one data center. It just doesn't make sense for it to be one data center on 3,000 acres. Getting a sense of scale. First of all, let's talk about how electricity is measured. 1 megawatt powers what you see in this picture. 400 homes and a school. But we're talking, when we talk about data centers, we're talking about gigawatts. So let's move on. How big is a gigawatt? Well, a gigawatt is 1,000 megawatts. A gigawatt will power 200,000 homes, 25,000 businesses, 5,000 large commercial areas. Orlando, Florida, 1.2 gigawatts. Just keep that in mind. Okay? What they're telling us is that 4 large data centers, like you see in this picture, you see they're just white boxes. And they're full of computers, racks and racks and racks of computers. 4 large data centers, 1 gigawatt. That is a lot of power. That is Orlando added to your grid. Okay? So if you've got 1,000 megawatts of data center power, you've got Orlando coming to Mesa in terms of power build-out. Okay? Now, I don't know how many megawatts we have here, but that's why you have to have that information. Right?
1.25
1.25 gigawatts?
megawatts at the power plant. That's what they put out.
That's what your power plant puts out, but is it a gigawatt?
No, it's meg.
Yeah, it's megawatt.
It's about 1,200 megawatts.
Okay, so 1,200 megawatts is 1.2 gigawatts. Yes.
The proposed data centers that's filed with Eastern Kentucky Power earlier this year, that Eastern Kentucky Power filed, says they have a customer that wants 2.2 gigawatts of power.
2.2 gigawatts of power is almost 2 Orlandos. Okay?
So could you describe the different ownership forms? Like, KU being more for-profit distribution, while, the cooperative companies are formed different.
So I can tell you the difference between EKPC and an investor-owned utility. It has to do with how they're financed. Okay? An investor-owned utility has 2 ways of making the large investments that are needed for electric power. Okay? One of them is debt. They can go to the bank like you can. They take their balance sheet. They say, look at the millions on this balance sheet. Don't you want to loan us money? Because this balance sheet is the one that's going to back up your risk of giving us money. Right? That's debt. You also have, with investor-owned utilities, equity. That comes from people who say, oh my God, look at all these data centers. I'm going to invest in a utility because they're going to make lots and lots of money soon because they're going to connect to data centers that are doing artificial intelligence, right? And so the equity comes from people who are saying, I got $100 in my pillow. I'm going to give it to AI, artificial intelligence. And I'm either going to give it directly to the AI companies or I'm going to give them to the utilities that are going to serve the companies. Right? So, that's an investor-owned utility, right? And they have to pay a return, right, to their shareholders, right? Kentucky Utilities has been granted by the Public Service Commission a 10.95% return across the board. That's what they get that's the return on equity that they get. Hold on just a second, let me finish the question and I'll take your. The second, the rural electric cooperative only has one place it can get money. And it's still getting money based on its balance sheet. Okay? Its cost, a balance sheet is your cost of doing business over and against your receipts, right? Your income. And so they still use their balance sheet for debt. But a rural electric cooperative has a problem. And the problem that it has is that because the customers are so far apart, because a lot of them are in rural areas, that's why they're called rural electric cooperatives. they get their money from a special place embedded in the U.S. government. And so they don't get a return on equity, but they still pay their people, especially their CEO, really well, right? And so their top people get paid by how much they can lower the costs and increase the profit margin, right? So your question, I'm not sure exactly what you were after, but that's the incentive that EKPC would have.
Well, but doesn't their profit margin go back to their users? I mean, to the people they serve?
Well, it depends. EKPC is a generation utility. Okay? So if they have a whole lot of extra, then it might be returned to the customers through the generation. But if the distribution, see, EKPC serves with making utilities, making electricity. It serves, I think, 11 distribution cooperatives, right? And so it's complicated because the generation money, if you're paying too much on your generation part, your making of electricity, then it may come back to you, it may not. You'd have to ask the KPC.
Well, and then also in August, you know, the cooperatives, I think, filed for a tariff, the DCP tariff. So is that the same tariff you were describing, where generation, transmission, and connection?
These large load tariffs try to protect ratepayers, right? But the problem is you've got to put these large load tariffs in place before you ask for the build out of the new infrastructure. EKPC, I believe, is managing to ask for the tariff first. The difference between EKPC and LG and EKU is they ask for the infrastructure before they've gotten the tariff approved. So in our view, that does not protect customers. But if EKPC is lucky enough, right, to get theirs, to go ahead and get theirs, then the ratepayers in the cooperative are more protected, right? Okay. So what you have in front of you is a map of data centers in the United States. Hyperscalers are the companies that you've heard of. Google, Meta, Amazon, who else?
Tesla.
Well, Elon has he's doing a lot of AI research, I think.
Alphabet. Alphabet.
Google, yeah. Anyway, hyperscalers are these Silicon Valley people that are taking tax breaks left and right. Sir, do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm still trying to make sense of, I'm still trying to compare this gigawatt power usage to any other large-scale industrial operation in Kentucky. Who is Kentucky's largest?
Fair enough. So, do you know Blue Oval?
No.
Okay, so Blue Oval is the Hardin County battery factories
Okay.
that Bashir recently brought
Okay.
here.
What's their use?
So one factory is 270 megawatts, and the other is 270. So when they build out both factories, you're going to have about 530.
What about Georgetown? Toyota in Georgetown.
I don't know to be able to tell you, but my sense of things, obviously, if you've got two factory lines, right, 1.25 gigawatts, right, is a whole lot more than anything else you're going to have in the state. Like, a whole lot more, right? You're talking 250, 300, even an aluminum smelter. I could get Google an aluminum smelter and see how many megawatts they use. That would probably be the most you would get. So here we have the hyperscalers and leased data centers. I just want you to know the difference, because leased data centers are companies like QTS is one, who are building data centers the way that LG&E is building power plants. hoping that the data centers will come. Okay? They build the data centers and then they rent them to all kinds of different companies. So then you've got two layers between your electric power company and the tenant. You've got the owner of the building, and then you have the tenant, right? That opens up the possibility of more obfuscation, which is a problem, right? Sir?
Did not Big Rivers lose their aluminum plant down western Kentucky? Did they not have to close or?
They've got one that's curtailed. It
Okay.
might come back online.
All right, the other thing, don't power companies, cooperatives have like carte blanche to the Commodity Credit Corporation?
I don't know.
Okay.
I
That's where
can't.
money comes from, or used to come from.
That is likely the place,
Yeah.
but I'm not totally sure. I just know that it's embedded somewhere in government structure. Okay, sir?
So Nucor Steel in Gallatin County, which is an electric steel plant, it says uses, wait, I lost it. Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
Between 150 million and 260 million kilowatt hours.
But see, we're talking about two different things. A kilowatt hour is how much electricity you use over time. So we need to know the unit of time, and then we have to figure out what the megawatts are.
Tell me again what you said that was. How many kilowatts?
Between 150 million kilowatt hours.
Okay, that's 150 megawatts.
Okay.
A megawatt is 1 million kilowatts.
There you go. Thank you.
Say that again. What did you say?
So the steel plant uses 150 megawatts of power, which is a lot less than 1.25 gigawatts that we're talking about for a data
I
center.
think it's important that people understand it's a megawatt hour. That's every hour. That's what they're pulling.
24/7.
Right,
24/7.
it's 24/7.
It's a
So the
megawatt hour.
difference between a megawatt hour and a megawatt is, if you have a hose, megawatt is the size of the hose. How much electricity can you get at any one moment, right? Going through that hose. How much water can you get going through that hose? The megawatt hour is all the water that you put on your garden as the water ran through the hose all day long. Okay? So that's a different measurement, right? It's a megawatt hour is how much electricity you use over time, right? And a megawatt is the capacity that you could use at any one moment. Okay?
And an aluminum plant and a steel plant employ a lot more people.
Yes, they do. Sir?
So going back to your previous slide,
Yeah.
the difference between a hyperscaler and a leased property
Yeah.
is ownership, nothing else.
Probably ownership, and it complicates because it's not directly. If I'm Meta and I own the building that the data center is in, then you have a direct line to the person actually using the power and the water in your community, right? If you have a leased data center, then you have this shadowy somebody who is the owner of the building who may or may not be willing to tell you who's in the building. And that is a problem because you need to know, you need to have a relationship with the person who's coming to your community to extract all this water and electricity, right? So data center growth is spreading. The dark blue is current data center capacity. Okay, you will see that Virginia has the largest data center capacity in the nation. The dark blue is the current capacity. The light blue is the expected capacity. You will see that on Kentucky, we have expected, at least when this was done, and this was done in Q2 of 25, it is expected that 1 gigawatt of data centers will be in Kentucky by 2030. So I don't know who these people are that are going to use 1.2. Somebody needs to know that. This information, by the way, is taken from S&P Global Intelligence, and it represents full facility utilization for known operational under construction and planned. No crypto mining is involved in this. I just want you to know where this information is coming from. The other thing you need to know is that the utilities are talking about economic development and data centers, right? I think we could talk to them about what economic development really is and whether we really need more jobs to call it that. But just 23 utilities claim 700 gigawatts. Okay? That is 700 Orlandos added to our national grid. 700 Orlandos would consume 30% more than all the electricity of all purposes in the United States today. So we have internal research for this, and what we found out is that if you're Silicon Valley, you want the best deal, right? So how many county governments would you come to promising to locate there? As many as would see you. Real-time impacts of data centers. Ratepayer harm, water worries, and lost land from data center growth. Higher energy costs is something that can be expected because of simple demand and supply. When you have economics, when there's more demand, the price goes up until you have the supply of energy. Yes, sir.
Well, I 100% agree with your assessment of KU trying to pre-buy the rate. But wouldn't you agree that if the cooperatives tariff passes and these entities have to pay up front for 100% of their generation, transmission, and electric usage?
That's not what they're paying for.
Ma'am, that's what the tariff.
No, the tariff. Let me tell you what the tariff is. The tariff is 80% up front for capacity.
100% of all inputs into. I mean, that's what Lane Report says, and that's what the EKPC.
I don't know. I would be happy to talk to you about it.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd be happy to talk to you about it offline because EKPC is different than I know that LG and EKU.
I agree with you on KU. KU actually turned in or submitted as evidence for their PSC that they had a data center project here in northeastern Kentucky. They did. There was a little bit of interest, but it was pie in the sky. And
right.
So I agree with you that.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Sir.
This is where the confusion lies. Who's paying what?
That's right.
Anytime you connect to the grid.
Right. Right.
Now, we do know where our energy policy has put us in this position in this country.
Mm-hmm.
We currently sit under the footprint of PJM here.
Yeah.
Okay. PJM has set all-time high capacity auction prices in the last 2 auction terms.
Exactly.
Has resulted in a significant price increase for the electric ratepayers across the region. Us, not so much. Jersey is seeing crazy, crazy stuff right now. PJM is telling us all to be prepared to pay 5 to 10% more. The last auction did not go as high as it could have because of Shapiro putting a cap on it, working with PJM for this last year's auction. What scares me with all this capacity, we don't have the energy to fund this stuff. We don't have the generators out there.
Not right now.
No. Right now, this last capacity auction, which sets our rates indirectly, We have now seen our demand reserve capacity. That's the energy that's in reserve, that's on available for demand. We have hot weather spells, cold weather spells, has gone below the lower threshold than we ever anticipated of 20% in PJM.
Yeah.
They're saying with this load growth that we're seeing by 2030, it's going to be to 5%. That means our light switches aren't going to always work when it's hot and when it's cold.
Certainly what I would say.
But here's my point.
Yes, sir.
We don't have anything in writing. We don't see anything that's specific of who's going to pay the whole boat. The answer to it is very simple. Don't connect them to the grid.
Right.
Make them build their own energy source, their own power plants, and direct line to their plants and get them off the grid. And guess what? That's not going to impact me. And the utility owners are going to get their guaranteed 10% for building out transmission, interconnection, and all that, which I pay for.
I don't disagree.
If the load to demand capacity or the supply to demand capacity is already low, shouldn't we be expanding production anyway?
Production?
Let me-
generation?
Yeah, generation.
Let me stop you for a
What's in
second.
the queue? There's nothing in the queue. They're not building right now.
Well, no, but shouldn't they be?
Gentlemen, we can have a debate. Let me finish my presentation, and then you guys can talk to each other. All right? All right. So we've got higher energy costs. We've got a portion of fixed costs that we might have to pay for. The question is whether or not we're going to be able to keep pace with demand. Utilities would need to import more power and could be more susceptible to spikes in energy market prices, which is what he was talking about. Okay? Data center driven electricity transmission build out in PJM region puts West Virginia ratepayers on the hook. We need to know what infrastructure belongs to the data center and what infrastructure belongs to us. There is too much common grid language, and I think in terms of the high load factor tariffs, in the case of KU, they're asking for the build out before the tariffs even been approved. And we need to not only have it approved, but have it required. So those are two different things, right? The PSC could say, okay, we're going to protect ratepayers with all these prepayments, but what if the Silicon Valley says we can get a better utility rate over in Virginia and we're gone unless you give us a better rate, right? So that's why you have to not only have your PSC approve the tariff rate, you have to have them require the tariff rate so that there can be no negotiating on the electric rate. Amen. We do not want to leave ratepayers holding the bag for all kinds of build out that doesn't get used. Okay? Yes, sir.
To your point, can you explain the process for people to do what you just asked?
I can. In fact, I have a friend sitting over here, Lane Goldman, who works at the Kentucky Conservation Committee, and she has a flyer about the rate case that has a QR code on it that you can use to submit a comment on the rate case and on the tariff. Okay? So, two things, and I'll just say this real quick. Out in the hallway, if anybody wants these slides to read carefully, you may have them. They are not proprietary, and there are no NDAs. Okay? You may have these slides. So, if you want them, there's a sign-up sheet out on the table for We Are Mason County, and it will have, just put your name, your email address, and we will send you the slides if you would like them. And the lane will have the sheets that tell you how to make a comment if you want to talk to the utility after the presentation, okay? Health problems, impacts, diesel generators. Let me go back just for a second. All right, you see these things that looks like trucks out behind these buildings? So those are diesel generators.
Wow.
Data centers want 24/7 electricity, so they don't want their servers to go down. So the other thing you have to be careful about is that you know what the backup power is going to be, because diesel generators come in kind of in the middle between things that are regulated, and diesel generators are really bad for your air. Okay? So you've got 138 of these, right, for one data center a lot of the times. So what you have to do is make sure that whoever's coming either works with the utility to get the battery storage backup that they need, right? You cannot let them bring in this many diesel generators to your community. It is not good for your health, and they will have to test them twice a month. Okay? So just be aware of that. That's the backup generation for the data centers. We also need critical information about data center projects that are hard to find and are not often made public. This is not the first community that has had people try to say that it's proprietary and we can't talk to you about it. Okay? They got to talk to you about it, because otherwise you won't know how much water they're going to take out of your community every year, or how much electricity they're going to need. You run the danger of them making private PPA, power purchase agreement, agreements with the electric utility that may be rates that leave you holding the bag on the infrastructure. You cannot have that. Cost. We already talked about that. We pay twice. We pay with our wallet, we pay with our health, unless we're very careful about how data centers are built out. I'm not saying they don't need to be built out. There will be some communities that want them, but they have to be transparently introduced. You have to be able to have community meetings where you know the answers to these questions, or else you're in trouble.
Amen.
Shifting risks. Data centers don't pay their fair share. They haven't in other communities in the country. They have gone where there are cheap electricity rates, right? They have gone where the legislature has said, here, don't pay taxes. We don't need you to pay taxes. We want you to come here. We're going to give you sales tax from now until the cows come home. Right? That's too long. That's too long. If you look at this side over here of tax breaks, you can see Texas is looking at $1 billion in lost taxes for data centers that have located there. Virginia is looking at, what do we see here, $732 million. It's a lot of money that are being given to companies that don't need it. There are some, also, data centers can take advantage if people want them. Yes, ma'am.
Quick question.
Yeah.
If a data center has contracts with the federal government, do they waive their property tax?
My guess is that they could, but I don't know anything specific about that issue, Jan. I'm sorry, I don't, but I don't. I know some things about some things, but not about that. You could also have data centers. This is not going to happen here because we, at least LG and EKU, are not in a transmission organization like PJM. But hookups, you can have data centers that come and want to be hooked up because they're interested in speed to market. And they're interested in speed to market because they want to start testing their stuff as soon as possible so they can win the AI race, right? It's all very, very secret and very, very fast by design. It doesn't have to be that way, okay? Also, you can see the trucks behind the building again. They're relying on lax pollution standards for diesel generators.
Wouldn't they still have to go through like the EPA and everything? I mean, for air quality control measures and.
The EPA for air quality control?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Used to be they had to go to the EPA.
Sure.
Used to be.
Lawmakers passed
Used to
a
be,
bill
right?
this last session that loosened the standards statewide for how many diesel generators you can have.
Gotcha.
Which is what actually I think kicked off a lot of the rush now.
There you go.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Wayne. What can we do here in terms of state policy and regulation? We don't need to give Silicon Valley Kentucky tax money. That's first of all. Tell your legislator that. Second, set up the data center rates like we were talking about, the extra high load factor tariffs. That is going to be looked at in the rate case. If you can tell your PSC commissioners, not only do we need you to approve that tariff, and that won't protect us completely. KU's is only 80% capacity that they're paying for 15 years out. Okay? And that's capacity, that's not energy. Okay? So I don't know what EKPC's looks like totally, but I would be surprised if it's 100%. I'll look at it tomorrow. Ratepayers and taxpayers, we need to have water use limits. If, for example, the fire department needs to put out a house fire, right? You got to curb your water use data center, right? If, for example, it's a really hot summer and we've got older folks that don't need to have a heat stroke, you can't brown out the regular ratepayers because the data center has to be kept on, right? That conversation has to happen before they come, not after they come, right? So basically what we're saying is, if they come, let's make sure they do no harm to existing ratepayers, water sources, healthy air, healthy water, and healthy land, right? We need to have these conversations before they come, not after they come. We need to require utilities to offer renewable battery storage, right, for their backup so we don't have to have the diesel generators. Require transparency on what's being built and for whom and why. We also need to make sure that they're located at an acceptable distance from homes, schools, and parks. There is some research that says that the sound from data centers is enough of an issue that you really need to make sure that noise mitigation stuff is put in, and that you make sure that schools and homes are not close to them. Because they have a lot of security. You can imagine they don't want people in there trying to hack their computers. So there's a lot of security, and so you have a lot of light. So you need to make sure that the light pollution and the noise pollution is mitigated. People are reshaping the data center industry. Like I said, they're not the only ones doing this. Oldham County did it before you. There'll be somebody that comes after you. You got to keep saying what you're saying. We need more information. You don't need to be an expert. You don't need to know the difference between a megawatt and a megawatt hour. All you need to say is, this is my story and I want to protect my community and the people in it. I am not anti-data center, but I want to make sure that you're not harming the people that I live with and that I love. You can see these are communities that have pushed back on data centers and won. So, most powerful tool for this, your voice, show up and be heard. I know you're doing that. I know We Are Mason County is doing a great job. You can push back on this data center by showing up and talking to your Public Service Commission, because they are aware of everything I told you tonight. These are the meetings that are still going to be had on the rate case, and the rate case is the one where KU's extra high load factor tariff will be approved or not approved. They need to hear from you. We don't want just well, you can use that one if you want. Nuh-uh. No, because then the utilities have an incentive to give them a special rate, right? Because they want the load. So you've got to say to the Public Service Commission, you have to make them use this tariff, right? Stay in the know. You can go to our website. We've got lots of resources. You can scan that QR code. There's a QR code on the sheet that Lane's going to hand out. If you would like to receive all the links and resources for tonight's presentation, you can either sign up, as I told you, out at the table, or you can just get in touch with me. That's my email. My name is Elisa.Owen, no S, at sierraclub.org. I'm happy to hear from any of you if you have more questions. If I will look at the EKPC,
Yes, please.
I will do it, and if you want to give me a card, I'll get back to you on what I read there. Not that I'm perfect, but I might have an opinion. Yes, sir.
Does your organization have any kind of teaching aids, helps, input for zoning and planning?
We and other organizations like us have ordinances that have been passed in other places for land use, for solar, for data centers, for all the things that people wonder about and are worried about. We have sample ordinances. We're happy to try to help you get a hold of whatever sample ordinance you want. And we're also happy to let you talk to other communities, people in other communities that have already been through what you're going through.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
The one thing that I don't understand is our judge executor and our commissioners all signed non-disclosure or documents. They will not tell the public anything.
Well, can I say something about that? Sure. That is partly because this whole thing has been set up as a competition, right? I feel, I think we have to be transparent, but I understand that in order to even get into a conversation about this, assuming you thought it might be a good thing for your community, you would have to sign one of those. Why? Because no company wants the other companies to know what they're doing in AI. And the reason for that is that we are setting this up instead of a let's do this together, which is I think that's the way we should do it, because I think AI in some instances can be dangerous. When somebody says to me we need a race toward the general intelligence, the AI as a agent, as its own agent that can teach itself stuff, we don't need a race there. Absolutely not. What we need is a collaborative, a regulated collaborative. And so I think that part of the reason that you're not getting the information you need is that we've set this thing up wrong from the beginning. We assume that competition is the best way to get something done. I don't think in this case it is, personally, and I would say it as many times as I had to say it. The AI race, I can tell you this was amazing. My chin hit the floor. Guy that I know who is a computer engineer was talking to me about how the companies are trying to pick off engineers, right? Computer engineers. Engineers were being offered to come from the company that is assumed to be second to the company assumed to be first. $300 million for 5 years. Some of them said yes, and some of them said no. But the problem is there's too much money chasing too much money, and we're doing it wrong.
We're paying for it.
Not all of our commissioners signed that NDA. We had one that did not.
Well, and also understand, we use non-disclosure agreements for Flight, PPI, Pepsi.
It's wrong.
It's
wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong.
That's not the purpose of this.
Now, if they're not gonna tell us anything, if the commissioners and the judge executive and all, if they already know what's going on, but they're not gonna tell us anything, what can we do?
Well, you can FOIA stuff at the state level. I've got a list of stuff that you can look for, permits that have to happen, and try to stop them there. You can also vote them out. You can keep saying over and over again, this is not helping us. Because
But they can still go ahead and approve everything before anybody knows what's going on.
But you've got to have electric hookups, you've got to have water build out, you've got to have all kinds of things so that the likelihood that this stays secret over the entire build out process, that's going to get harder and harder. So I'm just saying that you can get in touch with the transparent government committee, you can do all kinds of things to try to pressure them.
Yeah, I posted to somebody, I think I might post on the Facebook, or told one of you that you should look into the Kentucky Open Government Coalition. They're a nonprofit, but they are focused on government transparency, and I think they're somewhat aware of this problem when the Louisville situation came up.
So,
We haven't been able to, we wrote 45 questions, which I'm happy to share with you the list that we wrote. We wrote 50 questions that we needed from the mayor of Louisville, for him to help us get the answers to. I met with the mayor 2 weeks ago. How many of those questions do you think I got the answers to at that meeting?
None.
Two. Yes.
Goose egg, man, goose egg.
So there's an interesting example, I think it was in Arizona. And I'm not saying I'm pro data center or against the data center. But if you are against it, there is an option. I think it was some town in Arizona, the people rose up and said, we don't want a data center here. So they went to their city council, elected officials, and said, we want you to stop it. So the city council voted and said, we're going to stop any work towards a data center. You have 3 county commissioners here that can do the same thing.
And they did,
Well, they could still.
but they did.
I think we're
And
making.
they
Hold on. This is not a public meeting on the data center here. It's an education thing, and I don't want to start back and forth, right?
Thank you.
But I'm happy to answer questions if you guys can. Yes, ma'am.
So I have 2 quick questions. Is there any stopping this reality? Is it just a future that we're all just going to have to deal with? And 2, how likely is it, considering I now have more computing power in my hand than would have filled a room 30 years ago or something, that these huge data centers are going to be built and then suddenly become obsolete after we've invested all this infrastructure and torn up land and destroyed waterways and so on and so forth?
I would say likely. It's just a matter of time. Computing power has gotten more. Plus, when we began the computer revolution, right, we thought that people were going to have to rent space at a large mainframe computer in order to be able to compute things, right? And then the laptop came along. So I don't know where it's going. I'm not a computer engineer, unfortunately.
I mean, to me, it's like, I understand probably the inevitability of this, but it seems like we're so ready to go full force into construction and destruction when very likely things are going to change rather rapidly.
They very well could. I think that's why it's very important to have a conversation. It can't be the decision of 3 people or 4 people. You need to have a conversation so that the whole community can decide whether or not this is something you want in your backyard. Yes, sir.
I don't mean to hold you to one answer, but my question is, say that a data center is approved, it's going to come to the area, there's nothing we can do, the project is happening. what is in your opinion, the biggest risk that if you could say, if you do anything, make sure this is in place? What are your thoughts?
I think diesel generators are a big problem for backup power. That is the thing that I would push hardest on, because that's going to really mess up air quality. And I would also make sure that you are protected as a ratepayer if you are a customer of any of the companies, because all of us are affected by the increased demand, right? So I would open your mouth at the PSC over and over again. Yes, ma'am?
I have a question from the internet.
Yeah.
They want to know if any area has been able to hold the data center accountable to the community afterwards.
I think that's been hard to do, and I think that's why people in Virginia have decided that they have to come out beforehand. Because I think that once the company is there, they sit behind their fence and they shut their mouth.
I was going to say the good news is we are able to learn now from other communities that have been hit too hard by this too fast. So Virginia is probably a great example of where they have hired remorse now.
Yeah. How are we doing on time? I want to not let people sit here forever and ever. Yes.
You know any data center that's been built that's self-sufficient power-wise?
I know that there is a company that I can get the name for it. I know that New Mexico passed legislation that said that the data centers were more than welcome to come, but they had to bring their own power.
Amen.
So New Mexico has that legislation. You've got legislators here that need to hear from you. That's the other thing I would try to do if I had a legislature.
That was my next question. Is that something that's on your all's radar to push for?
So my organization is the lobbyist for the local Sierra Club. We meet regularly with lawmakers. I met with one in your region just this week. They are learning just like you are learning. And they are getting pitches from your utilities, right? And the utilities want this stuff, right? So they're going to hear a certain side or a certain angle. So it's really important that you all as citizens are reaching out to your lawmakers. I advised when this meeting was coming up that people invite their lawmakers. I'm also more than happy to send messages on your behalf or sit down with you and your lawmaker and give you that support.
So again, Lane works for the Kentucky Conservation Committee, right?
Yes.
And so that's where you'll find her. She works closely with the Sierra Club also, and has been a volunteer for years and years, and she's the one who drove me up here. Okay. I am available for questions. I'm available to do this again. I'm available to give you my slides. Let me know how I can help. Thank you for having me this evening.
Thank you.
You want to give them like
So, one last thing, we're going to do a door prize for everyone that came out tonight. So thank you again, everybody, for coming out. I'm going to go on and raffle off the door prize outside. Did everybody get a ticket? Oh, you didn't get a ticket? Okay. Oh, wait a second, man.
She's going to get tickets.
Thank you, my friend.
No problem. I'll get it. I just haven't looked at that one yet. I'm sorry.
No, not a worry. Not a worry. They talked about it in a Lane report 2 weeks ago.
I'll look at it.
Okay.
All right. I'll send you an email.
All right, so here's your raffle number. Check this out real good. All right, we got number 778034. You got it? Congratulations. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Have a good evening. Safe drive home.